Have you ever stood in your own home and suddenly felt like a stranger in it, like the walls remember love, but the people inside don't? That morning, I realized something had quietly broken long before the mug ever hit the floor. I was making coffee the same way I had for nearly 30 years, slowly, carefully, respectfully. The kettle hummed, the soft clink of the spoon against porcelain echoed in the quiet kitchen, and for a moment it almost felt like she was still there. My wife, Mira, she used to say, "Morning set the tone for the entire day." If you rush your coffee, she'd laugh, you'll rush your life. So I never rushed it. Even now, especially now. The mug I was holding was her favorite, a simple white ceramic cup with a faint blue rim, slightly chipped near the handle. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't special to anyone else, but to me, it was one of the last things that still felt like her. I had just poured the coffee when I heard footsteps behind me, quick, sharp, not the kind that belonged to someone easing into a morning. Before I could turn around, crash, the sound exploded through the kitchen, porcelain shattered across the tiles, coffee splashed against the cabinets, dripping down like something alive. I froze, my hand still hovering midair, fingers curled around nothing. I looked down, the mug, her mug, lay in pieces at my feet. For a second, my brain refused to catch up. It felt unreal, like a scene I was watching from somewhere outside my body. Then I slowly looked up. Nadia stood there, my daughter-in-law. She didn't look shocked. She didn't look sorry. She looked irritated. "It was just a useless old thing," she said, her voice flat, almost bored. "Why do you even keep junk like this?" Something inside me tightened. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter, something heavier. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My eyes drifted back to the broken pieces on the floor. A thin line of coffee crept toward the edge of the tile, as if trying to escape. "That was," I started, but my voice felt unfamiliar, dry, distant. "That was your mother-in-law's," she shrugged. "So?" Just one word, so light, so careless. And in that moment I realized this wasn't an accident. Not really. I bent down slowly, my knees protesting as I lowered myself to the cold floor. My fingers hovered over the shards, unsure where to begin. I didn't want to cut myself, but somehow that didn't feel like the worst thing that could happen. "I'll clean it," she added, but she didn't move. I picked up the largest piece, the chipped handle. I remembered exactly when that chip had happened. Years ago, a quiet evening, her laughter filling the room after she'd bumped it against the sink. A memory, now sitting broken in my hand. "No," I said softly. "I'll do it." Nadia exhaled sharply, like I had inconvenienced her somehow. "Fine, but seriously, you should get rid of all this old stuff. It makes the house feel outdated." The house. I almost smiled at that. This house was built before she even knew my son existed. Every corner held summing. Birthdays, arguments, reconciliations, small moments no one else would ever notice. Outdated. The word lingered in the air long after she walked out. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. At first, it was small things. Furniture rearranged without asking. My wife's photo quietly moved from the living room to a shelf in the hallway. The curtains replaced, the old ones. "Too dull," she said, even the way she spoke. There was always something underneath, something polite on the surface, but sharp if you listened closely enough. And my son, Armin, he didn't notice. Or maybe he chose not to. "Dad, she's just trying to make the place nicer," he told me once, smiling like everything was perfectly normal. "You have to let things change. Let things change." It sounded reasonable. It always does, when it comes from someone you love. But change doesn't usually feel like erasure. That afternoon, I sat alone in the living room, the broken mug pieces wrapped carefully in a cloth beside me. I hadn't thrown them away. I couldn't, not yet. The house felt different, quieter. But not in a peaceful way, more like something was missing, or maybe something had been taken. I kept replaying her words in my mind. Useless old thing, I wondered. Was she talking about the mug or something else? That night, I heard them talking in the next room. I hadn't meant to listen, but when your name is mentioned, your ears don't ask permission. "He's too attached to everything," Nadia was saying. Her voice was lower now, but still clear enough. "It's not healthy, Armin. We can't live like this forever." There was a pause. My son sighed. "He's been through a lot." "I know," she replied quickly, "but at some point he has to move on, or we do." The silence that followed felt heavier than any words. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "Or we do." Something about that sentence didn't sit right. Not at all. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was still, quiet in that fragile, temporary way before the day begins. I walked into the kitchen out of habit and stopped. For a moment, I thought I had entered the wrong house. The shelves were half empty. The small wooden spice rack, gone. The old kettle, gone. Even the drawer where I kept the little things my wife had collected over the years, open, almost bare. A strange feeling crept up my spine. Not confusion, recognition, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. This wasn't about a mug. It had never been about a mug. And as I stood there, staring at the empty spaces where my life used to quietly exist, I felt it, clear, cold, certain. Something was about to happen, something I hadn't been prepared for. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was still living in my home or slowly being removed from it. I stood there for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit, just staring at those empty spaces. You don't really notice how much of your life lives in small things until they're gone. A missing kettle shouldn't feel like a loss. An empty shelf shouldn't make your chest tighten. But it did, because it wasn't about the objects, it was about what they carried. And someone, very deliberately, had started clearing them out. I didn't say anything that morning, not when Nadia walked into the kitchen, already dressed, already scrolling through her phone like the day had somewhere important to be. Not when she casually poured herself coffee, using a brand new mug I had never seen before. Clean, modern, perfect, not like the ones that used to live here. "Oh, you're up early," she said, barely glancing at me. I nodded. "Where are the things from the shelves?" I asked, keeping my voice even. Calm, controlled. She took a sip, then shrugged. "I packed some of it away. The rest, I think we'll donate. It's honestly just clutter." Clutter, that word again. Different form, same meaning. I studied her face. Still no hesitation, no flicker of guilt, just efficiency. "And you decided that on your own?" She finally looked at me properly then, not defensive, just slightly annoyed. "Well, someone had to," she said. "We can't keep living in a museum." A museum. Funny, museums preserve things that matter. I almost said that, but I didn't. Instead, I nodded, once, slowly, and walked out of the kitchen, because something inside me had shifted, not broken, not yet. But it had adjusted. I spent most of that day outside, not because I had somewhere to go, but because I needed space to think. There's a difference between feeling uncomfortable in your home and realizing you're no longer part of the decisions being made inside it. And that realization doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in, quietly, persistently. Like water through cracks you didn't know were there. When I came back that evening, Armin was home. He was sitting on the couch, laptop open, work half finished. He looked up when I entered, offering me that same easy smile he'd had since he was a boy. "Hey, Dad," I nodded, setting my keys down. "Can we talk?" Something in my voice must have been different because he straightened slightly. "Yeah, of course." We moved to the dining table, the same table where he used to do his homework, where Mira used to place an extra piece of bread on his plate, even when he said he was full. It felt smaller now, or maybe we had just grown further apart. "I noticed things are being removed from the house," I said. He exhaled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, Nadia mentioned it. We just thought it might be time to clear out some of the old stuff." "Old stuff. Did you think to ask me?" I asked, not sharply, but directly. He hesitated. And that hesitation said more than any answer could. "We didn't think it would be a big deal," he admitted. "I mean, it's just things, Dad. Just things." There it was again, the quiet dismissal of everything I had been holding on to. I leaned back slightly, studying him. "When your mother passed," I said slowly, "what do you remember most?" He frowned, caught off guard by the question. I don't know. Everything, I guess." "Try," I said gently. He looked down at the table. "Her voice," he said after a moment. "The way she used to call me in the mornings, the way she cared about small things." I nodded. "And if I told you those small things are what you're throwing away, would it still feel like nothing?" He didn't answer, because now he understood, at least a little. That conversation should have changed things, but it didn't, not really, because the problem wasn't misunderstanding, it was intention. Over the next few days I paid closer attention. Not to what was said, but to what was done. Boxes appeared in the storage room, labeled, organized, efficient. Some things disappeared overnight, other things were quietly replaced. And Nadia, she moved through it all with a kind of quiet certainty, like she wasn't asking for permission anymore. She had already decided. Then came the moment that made everything clear. It was late evening. I had gone to get some water when I heard voices again, not tense this time, strategic. "It's not working like this," Nadia was saying. "We need our own space, Armin. Properly." "We have space," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "You know what I mean," she pressed. "We're adjusting our entire life around him. His routines, his attachments, his past." A pause, then softer but sharper. "And it's not going to change." Silence. I stood still in the hallway, my hand resting against the wall. "And what are you suggesting?" Armin asked quietly. Another pause. Then she said it, not loudly, not dramatically, just plainly. "Maybe it's time he moved somewhere more suitable." I didn't feel anger, not immediately. What I felt was something else. Clarity, cold, undeniable clarity. Because now, everything made sense. The mug, the shelves, the slow removal of everything that tied me to this place. It wasn't about modernizing the house. It was about making sure I no longer belonged in it. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was hurt, but because I was thinking, really thinking, for the first time in a long time, without emotion clouding everything. And by morning, I had made a decision. I started quietly, just like they had. I went to the storage room and opened the boxes, carefully, methodically. I took out what mattered, photos, letters, small things no one else would understand. I packed them again, but this time with intention, not to store them, to take them. By afternoon, I made a call, a simple one, to a man who had been asking me the same question for years. Are you ever going to use that place, or just keep talking about it? I hadn't answered him back then, but I did now. Yes, I said, I'm going to use it. The cabin wasn't much, just a quiet place on the outskirts of town. Something Mira and I had planned to spend time in someday, when life slowed down. Life never did, until now. I didn't tell them immediately. I waited, watched, let them continue, just as they had been. Because sometimes people reveal more when they think nothing is changing. 2 days later, Nadia brought it up again, this time at the dinner table, carefully, gently, almost rehearsed. We were thinking, she began, maybe it would be more comfortable for you to have your own space, somewhere quieter, more suited to your needs. I looked at her, then at my son. He didn't meet my eyes, and that was all I needed. I agree, I said. Both of them looked up, surprised. You do? Armin asked. I nodded. I think it's time. Relief. It passed across Nadia's face so quickly she probably thought I didn't notice. But I did, and in that moment, I understood everything. I moved out the following week. No arguments, no drama, just quiet efficiency. The same way they had started removing pieces of my life. I removed myself from theirs. The cabin was exactly how I remembered it. Still, quiet, honest. The kind of place that doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Weeks passed, then a month, then another. I rebuilt my routine. Morning coffee, new mug, but the same care. Walks in the evening. Silence that didn't feel empty. Just peaceful. Then, one day, my phone rang. Arman. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Dad. His voice sounded different. Not distant, not distracted, just uncertain. Can I come see you? I looked out at the trees, the quiet stretch of land that asked nothing from me. Yes, I said. When he arrived, he didn't say much at first. He just looked around, taking it in. You did all this? He asked. I smiled faintly. No, it was always here. I just came back to it. He nodded. Then, after a long pause, I'm sorry. 2 words, simple, but heavy. For what? I asked. For not seeing it, he said. For letting things go too far. I studied him, and for the first time in a while, I saw the boy he used to be. Not the man caught between comfort and confrontation, just my son. We all miss things, I said quietly, until we don't. He stayed for a few hours. We talked, not about blame, not about Nadia, just honestly. And before he left, he said something that stayed with me. The house doesn't feel the same anymore. I nodded, because I knew why. It never would. I never moved back, not because I wasn't welcome, but because I finally understood something I hadn't before. A home isn't the place where your things are kept. It's the place where your presence is valued, and the moment that disappears, no amount of walls can hold it together. Sometimes people don't push you out with force. Dinafer sanantrier de sanandi de fer, de sanandir de fer, to sanandir. Deferinderer sander slowly, quietly, piece by piece, until one day you realize you've already left. The real question is, do you stay where you're no longer seen, or do you walk away and finally see yourself clearly again?